They say that you never forget your first, and I would argue that the same is true for your first class experience. Join me today at London Heathrow Airport as I hop on board British Airways' 787-9 out to San Jose, California in the first class cabin. Now, the difference between the first class and business class product usually somewhat depends on the airline that you're flying, but the first class product usually tends to be much more private and luxurious. For example, on the British Airways 787-9, there's 42 business class seats that allow for a lie-flat experience. You still get some lounge access, you still get a dedicated check-in area, and expedited security, and the basics like that you would expect with a premium cabin. However, the first class cabin only has 8 seats, so they can really focus on the luxury fine-tuned for those 8 passengers. You get a dedicated check-in wing, a private security line, an extra special lounge just for the first class passengers, and all kinds of stuff like that. So with that, let's head inside to London Heathrow's Terminal 5, British Airways' hub, and see just what this terminal has to offer for us. Now, London Heathrow is one of the world's biggest airports, and British Airways is their largest carrier, so that considered, it makes sense that there is infinite amount of check-in desks, or so it seems. You'll see an endless line here of check-in desks specifically for economy, another section specifically for premium economy, business, and first class as well. Now, here's one of the first big differences between business and first class that I noticed. Here's the business class check-in at Heathrow. You can see the counters look normal, but it is separated from economy class. Across from that is the ultra-private first class wing, dedicated for British Airways first class travelers, and it's enclosed with its own entrance to a private security. And once you get inside this very private area, the first thing you're going to notice is that the check-in desks look somewhat normal. However, because there's much less passengers, the line goes by much quicker and you're able to get your bag situated. That being said, there's also extra seating here in a comfortable couch style, so if you do have to hang out a little bit longer, don't worry because you will be plenty comfortable. And on top of that, if you get thirsty while you're waiting, don't worry because there is someone coming around with a tray of waters, offering waters to every passenger waiting in line, and they'll come around later to collect your empty glass. And with a wait of less than 5 minutes, I was finally at my counter. I had my bag checked, I had my boarding pass in hand, and I was off to my private security checkpoint. And here you can see the boarding pass, not much decoration, which is just one of those small things that I look for. But on the back, it does have the first wing noted clearly for the first class passengers entering through this private entrance. With that in hand, I grabbed that and my passport, and I headed off to my private security checkpoint dedicated to first class passengers that dumps you directly into the lounge. Once through security, the first thing you're going to notice is this fantastic view of the departing runways. And once you're past security and you've recollected your bags, it's time to head through the exclusive hallway directly into the lounge. Now, for business class travelers, they do have to head through the normal Terminal 5 security, although they can get some priority security access. Once you're through there is a separate entrance for those passengers. So if you are traveling first class, one of the extra benefits that you get is rather than dealing with all the rest of the passengers in the terminal, you can head through security and through your own private entrance. But now, welcome to the Club Lounge, one of 2 in this terminal in Heathrow, dedicated for first and business class passengers. We will check out the exclusive first class lounge in a little bit, but before we head out there, you'll notice this lounge here is extremely crowded, and yes, it was a busy time of the day, and I will also show you that there is screens around the terminal to monitor the busyness of the different lounges so you can pick the right one to hang out with. Now, throughout the lounge, you'll find a number of these signs here that point to all kinds of different stuff that you'll find spread out throughout the lounge. Now, we will check out the entirety of this lounge, as well as the Concorde Room, which is one of the exclusive, finer lounges that you'll find for first-class travelers in the world. One of the features you'll find in this lounge here is a feature called 40 Winks, where you can reserve these pods where you can either get some work done or get some sleep in a much more enclosed, private, quiet environment. One thing this lounge absolutely excels in is the sweeping views of the ramp and the runway. No lack of traffic views from all these fantastic airplanes that you can find throughout London Heathrow. Now, being that this flight took place in December, the lounge was fully decked out in its Christmas decorations, so it was fun seeing what they had all around, like this bar, for example. Just past that bar, you're going to find the access to the open-air terrace, which is still inside considering that it's usually pretty foggy and cold in London, but it does have fantastic views of the ramp. You can see here great views of the arriving and departing traffic on one of Heathrow's main runways, and as we continue to sweep the camera, you can see plenty of views of the Terminal 5 half of London Heathrow and the wide variety of British Airways' fleet over all the rest of London Heathrow's Terminal 5 interior. Now a look at some of the food and beverages that they have here at London Heathrow Airport. Obviously a London favorite, lots of tea, coffee, and pastries, and just past that you're going to find some of the colder drinks along with some oatmeal and some cereal bar options. Past that, you're going to find some cold cuts and bread, so you can make some sort of a breakfast sandwich type of option. And just past that is a traditional English breakfast, the hot dish options with sausage, bacon, eggs, beans, mushrooms, and all that kind of stuff. Another thing that I've started noticing in more airports is these kid zones where kids can come get all their mental and physical energy out before being cooped up in an airplane, and the parents can also drop them off if they need some time alone to just hang out in the lounge and enjoy themselves. As I mentioned previously, here's a sign to see the occupancy at the current time for all the lounges that British Airways has, so you can see which ones have the most people in them and maybe choose one that's a little bit less crowded if you can. But without further ado, let's go head off to the exclusive Concorde Room, dedicated for those traveling in a first class cabin. It's a little bit more ornate and a little bit more private, and I was very excited to try this out. To get there from the main lounge, we're just going to pass through this hallway that is beautifully decorated for the Christmas time as we head out to the Concorde Room check-in area. And with that, welcome to the Concorde Room, the exclusive first-class lounge here at London Heathrow that pays homage to the Concorde jet, of course, of which British Airways was one of the main carriers of. Once you get inside, you're going to notice that, of course, it's much more private and a little bit more ornate, especially considering that the aircraft that do have first-class cabins don't have a lot of first-class seating, and so there's a lot more space for people to hang out, and you can see that even those spaces that they do have aren't completely filled up. Throughout all the lounges here in Heathrow, they have a collection of all the model airplanes. Like, for example, up on the bar, you can see the model Concordes of the British Airways livery hanging out. Past that, though, we can head out to the terrace, which is similar to the one in the first class galleries lounge, but this one is specifically dedicated for the Concorde Room. In that area, you can find the Concorde nose cone, taken off of one of the Concorde aircraft that belonged to British Airways, so you can see exactly what this nose looked like on the supersonic jet of the past. Now, similar to the other terrace, of course, there are fantastic views here from the Concorde Room's terrace, both of the entire ramp and of Heathrow's Terminal 5 below. Next up came the crowning achievement as far as British Airways lounge food goes, and in all honesty, probably worldwide lounge food. The Concorde Dining is a super intimate setting for solo travelers or group travelers to come get a more fancy, more formal bite to eat before heading off for their flight. It was an absolute privilege to be seated into one of these private booths where I was able to sit down at my nice table with a nice menu and enjoy some good food before heading out to my airplane. You can see here the Concorde Room specific menu that has a wide assortment of options that of course is included in the cost or miles of your ticket and of no additional cost to you once you're in the lounge. You can see at all times of the day they have some sort of options. Breakfast until 11:30, which is what I took advantage of, and you'll see that soon. Going all the way through dessert, as well as plenty of beverage options, alcoholic, non-alcoholic, hot beverages, cold beverages, and anything you could need here. It wouldn't be London if I didn't get a nice pot of tea, so I went with the Twinings Honey Rooibos tea, which was absolutely fantastic, and with that there was also a nice jar of honey and jam to put on my toast as well. I decided to try their traditional English breakfast, which is usually a pretty bland breakfast, so I decided to see what the Concorde Room's take on this was. Unfortunately, it was still pretty bland. Not much you can do with rice cakes, potatoes, and mushrooms with beans, but the saving glory for a San Francisco man is always a sourdough toast. However, the sourdough toast wasn't quite up to my San Francisco standards. After that meal, though, it was time to head off to the shower reception, where I got a shower to freshen up before getting on my 12-hour flight to San Jose. You can see the long hallways of endless shower suites here. There's a lot of them, all complimentary with the first class ticket. I got shower suite number 15. You can see inside here, definitely not the nicest shower suites that we've seen in our travels, but the ability to get on board an airplane fully showered up and fresh is a nice touch. After freshening up, I decided to explore a little bit of Heathrow's Terminal 5 before heading off to my gate. One of the first things I noticed after passing by some shops is that if you go through the normal security checkpoint, you pop out right here. Now you'll see the lounge up on top there, and the check-in kiosk right there where you can scan your boarding pass and head into the lounge from the side if you do not go through the dedicated first class check-in. Now these shots being from before the sun was up at Heathrow show you that when you pass through security, you're in the upper deck here at Heathrow. Down below you, you can see a large number of shops and some seating for the A gates. Heathrow has 3 wings, and the A gates being the primary hub of Terminal 5. Upstairs you'll also find a large number of shops before you head downstairs to even more shops, so plenty of space to kill time. They really do want you to spend the majority of your time here in this main hub with the A gates. One of the big bummers of London Heathrow is just the fact that they don't give you your gate until shortly before boarding. So you're forced to hang out in the main hub here with the A gates and shop or hang out and wait for them to publish your boarding gate so that you can then head off on your journey to your gate. Now once they did publish my gate, I saw that I was out of gate B42. Now being that I was here in the A gates, I had to make my way over to the B gates, meaning hopping on the inter-wing transit system to head out to the other wing of gates. One of the things that you're going to realize is that this does not take you between terminals. All of these wings are still Terminal 5, it's just different wings within Terminal 5. If you do have to get between terminals, you do have to leave security and get on London's metro system to go between the terminals. It's still free, but this transit system we're on now is just internally within Terminal 5 between the different wings. As we head upstairs, I had to stop at ground level to get this fantastic view of British Airways' A350 that had just arrived previously today from Sao Paulo, Brazil. Now finally we got upstairs to gate B42 for San Jose, which boarding looked like it was going to start soon. However, because a flight to San Diego and Mexico City were boarding right next to ours, the area was crowded and so they did delay boarding slightly for that reason. Luckily, Heathrow has no shortage of interesting airplanes and airlines to pass the time as you look out the window. One of which being the 6-year-old 787-9 here, loading up with catering before taking us off to San Jose, California. While waiting for boarding, I decided to check out the club lounge specifically for the B gates here for British Airways. This lounge is only accessible for passengers boarding out of flights to the B gates, considering they try and keep you in the A wing for so long before boarding. That being said, because of that, it made this lounge fairly empty. Now I did actually think this lounge was pretty nice, especially considering that technically it was just a business class lounge. It still had some great views of the ramp, the lighting and seating was definitely nice, and the food spread wasn't amazing, but it was definitely nice for a business class lounge standard. Now, one thing that is actually super nice here is that at the far end of the lounge here in the B gates, there's an entire set of shower suites, in addition to those in the A wing. So if you didn't get a shower in the A wing because it was too crowded, you can head over here and get that taken care of. One thing I also like is that because British Airways has such a wide range of airplanes in their fleet, there's plenty to look out the window, even though all you're looking at is one airline. Anyway, with boarding commencing shortly, I decided to head back to the gate. You can see they separate groups 1 through 9. Group 1 being specifically for first class passengers, 2 and 3 being for business class and priority members, and groups 4 through 9 being the assortment of premium economy and economy members. They actually queued up Group 1 and 2 passengers before boarding started, so that once the captain called for boarding, we were ready to go and could get on board quickly. Boarding was made super easy by these machines, where all you have to do is scan your boarding pass and pass through the gate, which took the person out of boarding, making it much more quick and efficient. Now, boarding this first class cabin was made extra special, considering that when the purser saw my first class ticket, he called for one of his crew members to escort me to my seat. Obviously not a touch that I need, but it made me feel super bougie and important, and a nice touch to have on these flights. On our way to the first class cabin, we passed through the business class cabin, and I'll have a better shot of that shortly. But once we got to the first class cabin, you can see that there's only 8 seats, making it extra private. Now, as far as the cabin configuration goes on this 787-9, first class is in a 1-2-1 configuration. You can see here the layout in first class with only 8 seats, making it a super private and intimate cabin feel. Just behind that is where you're going to find the business class seats on board this 787, and they're going to be organized in a 2-3-2 configuration with a staggered forward and rearward facing seat. Now, the first class cabin being in a 1-2-1 layout means if you're traveling with a couple, you can sit in the middle seat and put the optional divider down, and if you're traveling alone, the window seats make for a much better exclusive experience. In addition, the front and aft of the cabin had nice decorations on the bulkheads, which was nice to look at throughout the flight. Seat 2K is going to be ours today here, and as we pan around, we'll take a closer look, but you'll see that every seat gets 2 windows, and the attention to detail on both the exterior and the interior of the seat was just fantastic. Now, one of the biggest complaints with this type of first class seat is that there is no closed door to the suite. That being said, you'll see shortly while we're in flight that privacy is never an issue in this seat, just considering the setup of the cabin. In addition to that here, just looking at the seat itself, the detail on the seat is fantastic, and it was obviously super comfortable. Hard not to be when you're selling the ticket for the price that you are, and just how private and exclusive this cabin is. Now, interestingly, the leg rest didn't actually come up on this plane, but the footrest did slide out, so if you are shorter like me, you still have somewhere to rest your feet. Now check this out, storage is the name of the game on these long-haul flights for me. This seat had no lack of storage. Underneath the footrest you can see I can fit my backpack and still had plenty of room for my feet. In addition to that, there was a cubby directly next to that could be opened up that had just as much storage for more items, and directly next to that was an extra cubby with a coat hook so that if you had any sort of coat or pajamas or anything that you needed to hang up, you could put it all in there so your space was completely left for you and there was plenty of space for everything that you might have brought on board with you. Here you can see the ginormous in-flight entertainment screen, which just like Singapore Airlines is not touchscreen unfortunately, and is entirely maneuverable by the in-seat remote. Now, as if the footwell wasn't wide enough, directly next to that on the right side here you can see this cushioned ledge, and if you really wanted to spread out you could take advantage of all that space, especially when lied flat in the bed setting. Above that here is the countertop, which proved super useful when I was working, and the ornateness of it was fantastic and beautiful. In addition, as I mentioned, each suite has 2 windows and 1 button to control them, the infamous 787 dimmable windows. This button controlled both windows that I had in my suite, and you can see that it was adjustable nicely throughout my flight. The seat also has the least intuitive setting movement to it, considering that this knob is your master control unit and can only control one thing at a time depending on which button you've pressed to activate. If you're looking for some more device storage here, right in front of the literature pocket, you can see this button that pops this space open. In there is the least intuitive location for a seatback TV remote. And in addition to that, you're going to find 2 USB charging outlets, a universal charging outlet, and the headset plug, of which I'll show you the headset a little bit later. Just above that, there's an additional cubby that you can open up for smaller literature, the amenity kit, or whatever smaller things you might have, and you can open that directly above my right shoulder for a little bit of smaller access and a nice mirror to check yourself out throughout the flight. And now the amenity kit, which was in a nice suede type material and was designed specifically for British Airways first class passengers. Now, this was by far the most complete and fantastic amenity kit that I've ever received, which I guess is to be expected in a first class cabin. Starts with a normal eye mask that you might expect from any amenity kit, and then the toothbrush and toothpaste, but it was nice to have a real toothbrush and a large size toothpaste compared to the normal disposable stuff that you get. Then earplugs and a nice travel case in case you want to reuse them or other earplugs you have, along with a pack of about 10 tissues, which was nice to have on this flight. Then, as far as the amenities for your face and body goes, there was a nice lip balm, a deodorant to go with that, a shave gel, which was interesting considering they didn't give you a razor or anything like that. Then you get some nice moisturizer, an exfoliator, and an eye cream to go along with that. Then they came around with the pajamas. The slippers and pajamas were all a little bit large, but it is pajamas, so I guess it was comfortable, and a set of socks to go along with that. Along with that, they also gave us this nice blanket, which wasn't the warmest thing in the world, but made the seat awfully comfortable if you were just lounging around. And then when I went to put away my slippers here in the same cubby that I hung my pajamas up in, I noticed they dropped super far down, so when I opened up the cubby to see where they went, I noticed they fell all the way down into one big cubby. So if you do have to hang something up that's a little larger, don't worry because you have plenty of space. And as I peeled off the satisfying plastic from my first class headphones, I will let you know that the audio quality of these headphones is fantastic. The noise canceling was pretty nice as well. Unfortunately, they weren't the most comfortable headphones, but I was still able to get a nice full sleep even with them on my head. Prior to departure, you know they have to come around with a pre-departure beverage choice. Today I went with the champagne option along with a nut mix, and what surprised me most was just how big this glass of champagne was compared to what you get in most places. As I enjoyed my pre-departure snack, I started to get curious with how to operate this tray table. I saw a push button here, and I was able to get this part out. Pulling it out, it looks like whether folded in half or folded out all the way, it's an absolutely great tray table. Super sturdy, and especially the design on the inside, which matches the countertop, is absolutely fantastic. And in case you didn't get a good shot in the previous clips, here's a look at the perfectly inconvenient placed seatback TV remote located in the cubby directly next to my right side. Now the remote was nice, especially considering that the seatback TV wasn't a touchscreen, and so everything that you needed to access as far as in-flight entertainment was directly accessible by this remote. I always love when this feature is available, however the seatback TV ended up being a little bland because of that. Because of that here, we're going to take a second to look through the different entertainment options, and you're just going to have to look through what there is on this remote, and for those of you that don't care as much about this content, go ahead and use the timestamps below to skip ahead. Once I got fully settled in, however, it was nice to have this cubby to store my electronics in, especially because it had this little opening so if you had your headset or a charger plugged in, it was able to fit out of that pocket without any issues. And as strange as it might be, one of the things that actually disappointed me about this flight was that the restroom was perfectly boring. One of the things I've started enjoying is when airlines decorate their bathrooms or put a window in the bathroom or something to make it special, and even in the first class cabin, this bathroom was exactly average. And as I sat on my seat and awaited pushback here for our flight, I admired the A350, which is what I'm convinced to be the most beautiful airplane in British Airways fleet, if not flying around the entire world at this moment. But if you disagree, let me know in the comments what you think the current most beautiful airplane is. And as we taxi out of Terminal 5 here at London Heathrow, I couldn't help but just marvel at just how large of an operation British Airways runs here at Heathrow. Now obviously Heathrow is one of the world's largest airports, but just in Terminal 5 alone, it feels like its own airport in and of itself. Now this specific flight has actually been on my bucket list for a while, and in case you're wondering why, it's because specifically of the destination of San Jose, California. Now one of the things I love is these long-haul flights into the smaller airports, and San Jose, California serves as a backup for San Francisco, and it has had international service in the past, mostly trans-Pacific over to Asia. But this is one of the few times they've had transatlantic service, and it's been around for quite a while, and based on the loads that I've seen, the flight does tend to be pretty full. So I'm curious whether or not San Jose will bring more flights around soon. But for the time being, buckle up and let's head off to San Jose. Once we got in the air, I wasted no time getting my comfortable slippers on, and it wasn't long before I went and put the rest of the pajama set on as well. Now, British Airways does their meal service just a little bit differently here in first class. You can see here the menu that I was given when I boarded the airplane. However, unlike normal flights where the flight attendants come around and serve a certain meal, they operate as an a la carte service. What that means is that this menu has a bunch of different options of everything that they have in stock, and at any point throughout the flight you can call the flight attendant over and ask for any one of these items. They were suggesting meals at different times, but you were welcome to order things whenever you'd like, and they came by beforehand to ask me how I planned on enjoying my flight stay and what I wanted out of it so that they could better craft a meal for me. Made it feel way more personal. However, I do have to admit, the a la carte service is not for me. Unfortunately, what I learned about myself on this journey is that I never feel like I'm taking full advantage of a service unless I get everything possible. And with an a la carte service, it's physically impossible to take advantage of every possible thing. And so I couldn't help but feel like I was missing out on some form of experience. That being said, you'll see shortly the food that I received was actually fantastic, and I had no complaints about any of it. But the a la carte service is something that's probably better for other people. Now, one of the biggest complaints with these types of first class seats is that there is no closing door. And while that might be the case, you can see that privacy was really never an issue. I couldn't see anybody else and nobody else could see me. So while there wasn't a fully closing door, I felt like it was entirely my space and nobody was encroaching on that space. Then came the in-flight Wi-Fi. British Airways' fleet is almost entirely equipped with Wi-Fi, and if you're traveling in the first class cabin, you are in for a treat because it is one of the few worldwide cabins that offers a free Wi-Fi service. Fully free for the entire flight for every passenger in first class. All you have to do is put in your seat and your booking reference so they can confirm who you are, but as long as you are confirmed on a first class ticket, the Wi-Fi is completely free. The Wi-Fi might not be the fastest that I've ever seen, but considering it was free, lasted the entire flight, I really didn't have any complaints, and it was plenty fast as far as I needed for browsing and stuff like that. And as we flew over the northernmost parts of the United Kingdom where snow had already fallen on this day, the flight attendants came around with the hot towels, which meant that the meal service was starting up soon, and the flight attendants came around to offer food to those first class passengers who wanted to take advantage of it at this time, starting off with the first course, which was just the canapes. I went with a sparkling water, and the canapes were an assortment of fantastic food, of which I couldn't really identify all of it. I ended up having to go back to the menu, but things like salmon, beetroot, and some sort of ravioli concoction, and it was absolutely fantastic from start to finish. Now, the menu that they offered actually came with plenty of small options or light bites, and as you can see here, the side counter made excellent space for those light bites. So if you wanted to have space to work on the table in front of you, you had plenty of space for that. Or if you didn't even want to pull the table out at all and have more leg room, you had room for that as well. After finishing my first course, I placed my order for what I wanted as my main course and entree, and in the meantime, while they prepared that, I got comfortable, sat back, and enjoyed this fantastically comfortable seat. One of the things they came around and offered everyone was a hot beverage option. I decided to go with a cup of coffee this time, saved the tea for a little bit later in the flight, but they gave me a nice tray of sugars to go with that. Now originally I wasn't too hungry, and so I ordered some more of the light bites, starting off with the mixed green salad. The flight attendant then told me that I would really enjoy some of the rest of the food options, so I did dive into more of that considering it was the a la carte service, but I started light. In addition to the salad, I also had these duck rolls, which were also fantastic, but not all that filling, while the rest of the passengers in first class seemed to be getting full-on meals. For my entree, I went with the fantastic braised short rib, and I don't mean that lightly. I mean, guys, this fell off the bone. For an airplane meal, that is unheard of. The stuff on the side was okay, just some roasted vegetables, but guys, that short rib was fantastic. Shortly after the main course, some of the passengers were still ordering hot beverages or desserts, but for the most part they were preparing the cabin for some form of sleep. Considering that in San Jose time we took off early morning, probably about 4 a.m., and so a lot of passengers that wanted to avoid jet lag wanted to get some kind of sleep early on in this flight. As the rest of the passengers decided to start getting some sleep, before I took advantage of my bed, I had to take in the sights of Greenland. Something about the untouched nature of Greenland's landscape, snow, glaciers, and what have you, just makes it absolutely fantastic, and I absolutely love looking out at Greenland as I fly over these routes going from the Pacific to Europe or vice versa. And then I decided to make my bed. The bedding is fantastically comfortable, and obviously with the first class service, the flight attendants were more than happy to accommodate me with a turn down service to get my bed completely made up correctly. The mattress pad, the comforter, and the pillow were all of fantastic quality and made sleeping super easy, and what made falling asleep even easier is that along with that comfy bed, right outside my window was some beautiful glaciers as we crossed the northern Atlantic Ocean. What's that? You're 7 feet tall? No worries, you're going to have room in this seat considering that there is endless space. If you need to spread out wide, you can see space in both directions to spread out and still have a nice comfortable padded footrest. And if you're even taller than I am, you probably have a few more feet before you reach the end of the foot cubby. All in all, a fantastic place to sleep. The seat and bedding was super comfortable and the space was absolutely endless. A super easy place for me to get some sleep, and in all honesty, I was kind of bummed that my flight wasn't a little bit longer. Now you might remember me saying that the seat and light controls weren't exactly intuitive, and it's all controlled here on this center knob directly to my right side. How it's basically going to work is you select whichever mode you're trying to control, and then when you turn the knob, it's actually going to control the intensity of that mode. So here you can see me adjusting my table side light. In addition to that, you can click on any of these seat modes and use the knob to adjust that part of your seat independently as well. Once I was able to get the light figured out, that, along with the night mode setting of the cabin and the fantastically comfortable seat I was in, made it super easy for me to relax and get some work done with the plenty of space that I had available to me while I watched my in-flight entertainment options and waited for myself to get hungry enough to order my next meal of food. Then came my pre-arrival food. This time I decided to go with a quinoa goat cheese salad, and it was alright. The star of this dish, however, was the tea. I went with another pot of that honey rooibos tea that I had in the lounge prior to getting on the flight, and just like in the lounge, it was absolutely fantastic, and I finished 2 pots full of this honey rooibos tea. So Twinnings, if you're looking for a sponsor, hit me up, I got you. So you guys remember when I was talking about how the a la carte menu style isn't necessarily for me, and this is when it finally came back to bite me in the butt. Here the dessert service was coming around, or at least when I decided I was ready for the dessert service. However, at this point, most of the options had either ran out or the ice cream had melted, and so the only thing left was a raspberry and lemon meringue, which wasn't bad, but it definitely wasn't my first choice. As we got the customs and immigration form for the United States, that meant that landing was going to be approaching soon, and as we flew our 787 over California's Central Valley, I was going to miss this flight, but I was still excited for our arrival into San Jose. Well, I would call my first class a huge success. The check-in at Heathrow was absolutely easy and absolutely welcoming. Once I got to the lounge, especially the Concorde Room, top tier, top notch experience. Once I got to the airplane and got on board, the crew, from the second the purser guided me to my seat, I felt so welcomed and wanted to be on board the flight, and they treated us with the best hospitality possible. The seat was absolutely fantastic and comfortable. The entertainment was a great selection. The food I can't even stop talking about. Only thing I would change is the a la carte service, just for my own personal taste, considering the a la carte didn't work as well for me. But that being said, British Airways experience gets a 10 out of 10 for me in the first class cabin. I'm so glad I was able to experience this first class cabin. I find myself so very fortunate to have been able to be on this flight. But with that being said, welcome to San Jose, California. I hope you enjoyed this British Airways flight. Let's head out to customs and out to the curb. As we head up the jet bridge here and off to customs, I'll mention that San Jose does have a few gates that are connected to customs, mostly because of its flights to Mexico, with just a couple transoceanic services at the current time. So as we walk out here, you can see on the other side of this glass is all the people waiting to board our plane that's going back to London in just about an hour or so. And once we get out to customs, you'll notice that it's not that big of an area, considering that it really only has to accommodate one flight at a time. Now, when you arrive in San Jose, what you're going to find here is that the International Arrivals building is directly between San Jose's two terminals. So this building is meant for passengers who have to go through US Customs and collect their bags. And when you pop out, if you are connecting, you can recheck your bags, but you might have to walk a little bit to get to the next terminal, as well as there is an inter-terminal bus that's going to pass by as well. Once you get out to the curb, though, what you're going to find is on the right side is Terminal B, which hosts Alaska, Southwest, and the international flights, and Terminal A on the left side, which is going to host everything else, including Volaris flights as the only international flights, as well as Air Canada should be resuming soon. But with that, welcome to San Jose, California, where it's a beautiful sunny evening. I hope you enjoyed that flight. It's definitely in the top few flights that I've done in my lifetime, and I'm so happy I was able to share it with you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for more.